Quinn Keller didn't expect to jump into the ocean that morning, but when he saw the little girl flailing past the surf, he didn't think twice. "Hey, somebody call for help," he shouted as he kicked off his boots and ran across the sand, his heart slamming against his chest. The beach was nearly empty, the lifeguard stand unmanned. He dropped his shirt, dove headfirst into the freezing water, and swam with everything he had. The girl was going under again when he reached her. She was small, maybe 6 or 7, and her little arms were flailing weakly. Quinn wrapped an arm around her and kicked back toward shore, coughing and gasping as salt water burned his throat. His legs burned, his lungs ached, but he didn't stop. Not until his feet touched sand. He collapsed to his knees on the shore, the girl coughing beside him, tears streaking her wet cheeks. "You're okay," he said, voice hoarse. "You're safe now." Her tiny arms wrapped around his neck, and she sobbed into his shoulder. By the time someone came running, an older couple with their phones out. Shouting for an ambulance, Quinn had already given the girl his hoodie and was holding her close to keep her warm. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently. "Ollie," she whispered. "All right, Ollie, I've got you." The ambulance arrived minutes later, and a woman in a sleek black coat and heels came sprinting across the sand like her life depended on it. "Ollie," she screamed. The girl's eyes lit up. "Mommy." Quinn stood slowly, drenched and shivering, as the woman dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms. The woman's long dark hair stuck to her face, and her designer coat was already soaked from the embrace. "I thought I lost you," she whispered, voice cracking. "I fell," Ollie said, "but he saved me." The woman turned. Her eyes met Quinn's, and for a moment he forgot how cold he was. There was something about her. Not just the way she looked, flawless skin, high cheekbones, elegance that somehow didn't feel fake, but the way her eyes softened when she looked at him. "You saved my daughter," she said quietly. He nodded. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," she said, standing up. "Most people would have hesitated." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out. "Please let me." "No," Quinn cut her off. "I don't want anything." She blinked, surprised. "At least tell me your name." Quinn Keller." "I'm Delilah Brooks," she extended a hand, "and I owe you everything." Quinn didn't think he'd ever see her again. He went back to his life, early mornings delivering packages, late nights working at the mechanic's shop, and the rest of the time with his son, Oliver. Being a single dad wasn't easy, but he wouldn't trade it for anything. Then, 2 weeks later, he stepped out of the garage and found a sleek black car parked in front of the shop. Delilah Brooks stepped out, wearing a navy blue dress and heels too expensive for this part of town. "Quinn," she said with a smile. He wiped his hands on a rag. "Didn't think I'd see you again." "I've been trying to track you down. Took a while to find the right Quinn Keller in New Jersey." He raised a brow. "You tracked me down." "I wanted to thank you properly." "I told you I don't need." "I'm not offering money," she interrupted. "I'm offering dinner." He frowned. "Dinner?" "Yes, with me tonight." He looked down at his oil-stained shirt, then back at her. "Are you always this persistent?" "Only when someone saves my daughter's life." The restaurant was something out of a movie. Quinn had never even heard of it, someplace with no sign out front, valet only, and waiters in tuxedos. Delilah looked like she belonged in a magazine, her hair pulled into a soft bun, a silver necklace glinting against her collarbone. Quinn had borrowed a jacket from his neighbor and polished his only pair of dress shoes with motor oil. "You didn't have to go all out," he said, glancing around the sparkling dining room. She smiled. "I wanted to." He cleared his throat. "So, what do you do?" "I run Brooks Ventures." He paused, fork halfway to his mouth. The real estate group. She nodded. That's you're the CEO. I built it myself. He blinked. That's impressive. She tilted her head. You're not intimidated. I just pulled a transmission out of a '98 pickup in the pouring rain. I think I'm too tired to be intimidated. She laughed, and it was the first real laugh he'd heard since his divorce. Tell me about your son, she said. He blinked. How'd you know? You said his name when you were holding Ollie. You're okay, Oliver, I've got you. He smiled. Yeah, Oliver, he's 8. Smart, stubborn, loves baseball and refuses to eat vegetables unless I bribe him with ice cream. Her eyes softened. You're a good dad. Trying to be. What about Ollie's dad? Her face flickered. He passed away when she was 3. I'm sorry. She doesn't remember him much. It's just been the two of us. They sat in silence for a moment, the candlelight flickering between them. I meant what I said, she said softly. You didn't just save Ollie, you saved me too. After that night, Delilah couldn't stop thinking about him. He was nothing like the men she was used to power hungry CEOs with fake smiles and expensive watches. Quinn was real, honest, kind, and the way he looked at her. It made her feel seen, like she wasn't just some billionaire with a perfect life on paper. So she called him again. And he met her for coffee the next day. Then lunch. Then dinner again. And every time, it felt more natural. One night, she brought Ollie to the park, and Oliver was already there, tossing a ball against a tree. The two kids clicked instantly. So did the adults. Delilah watched Quinn laugh with the kids, his arms slung casually over the back of the bench near her. When he looked at her, she didn't look away. You ever think, she said, that maybe the ocean brought us together? He grinned. I think I nearly drowned. You saved her, she whispered. You saved her, Quinn. He leaned in, voice low. I'd do it again. Something shifted between them then. The air crackled, her breath hitched. And when he leaned in, she didn't stop him. Their first kiss wasn't slow. It was real. It was everything. Quinn didn't expect the front desk clerk to stare at him like he didn't belong. But then again, he wasn't used to buildings where the elevator had its own concierge. This one, Delilah said gently, placing her hand on the small of his back. Penthouse. He stepped inside the mirrored elevator, glancing once at the gold-trimmed walls before the doors slid shut. The ride was silent, except for the soft hum of the motor and the distant thump of his own heartbeat. He wasn't sure if it was the way she'd touched his back just now or the way she hadn't asked, just assumed he'd come. The doors opened into her home. It wasn't a place, it was a world. Floor-to-ceiling windows spilled moonlight over marble floors. A fire flickered beneath a glass hearth. Art hung on the walls in a way that suggested it was meant to be looked at, not simply fill space. The city glittered below, stretching endlessly. I didn't bring wine, he said after a moment, voice low. I already opened one, she replied, stepping into the kitchen and retrieving 2 glasses. Red or white? I don't know the difference. She handed him the red. This one tastes like velvet and secrets. He took it, fingers brushing hers. Should I be worried? Only if you plan on lying to me. Her tone was light, but her eyes were steady. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked slowly to the window, staring out at the city he'd only ever seen from ground level. You hate it, don't you? She asked, joining him. I don't hate it, he said carefully. I just don't understand it. This, she gestured around them, it's just furniture and a view. No, he said, it's not. She didn't argue. Instead, she turned to the wall and pressed a switch. The far panel slid open to reveal a hallway. Come on, I want to show you something. He followed her past the muted elegance of a space too perfect to touch into her daughter's bedroom. It was warm, full of color. Books spilled from shelves, and a stuffed whale lay flopped beside a tiny bed shaped like a sailboat. She picked the theme, Delilah said, leaning against the doorframe. She thinks she'll be a marine biologist or a pirate, depends on the day. She's got options. She always will. He glanced at her then, at the soft edge in her voice. You built this for her. And for me, after I lost her father, I needed something to protect, something to pour everything into. You don't talk about him much. Neither do you, she said, her eyes flicking to his. About her. He hesitated, then leaned against the opposite wall. It wasn't a clean ending. She left one night and didn't come back. Found a note on the counter and a bag missing from the closet. Said she wasn't meant to be a mother, that she regretted it. Delilah's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. I'm sorry. I'm not, he said, because I still have him. She stepped closer, and Oliver still has you. They stood there for a long moment, two people who'd survived different storms, staring at the wreckage that had shaped them. Do you want to stay for dinner? She asked quietly. I had something brought up. He nodded once. The dining table was already set, not formal but deliberate. She lifted the silver cloche with a small flourish. Lobster risotto, she said. Don't ask me to pronounce the chef's name, he gets offended. Quinn blinked. This smells like something I can't afford. Good thing you're not paying. He picked up the fork. What if I like it? Then you'll have to keep coming back. He met her eyes across the table. What if I want to? Her response was interrupted by the soft patter of feet. Ollie stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. I had a dream about the beach, she said. Quinn stood without thinking. You okay? She nodded, then crossed the room and climbed into his lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Delilah's breath caught. Quinn wrapped an arm around the little girl and looked up at her mother. She okay to stay a minute? Delilah could only nod. Ollie laid her head against his chest. You smell like the garage. You say that like it's a bad thing. Not bad, Ollie mumbled, just strong. Delilah laughed softly, a sound that seemed to fill the room. She rose and walked behind Quinn, resting her hand lightly on his shoulder. You make her feel safe, she said. He looked up at her. So do you. Later, when Ollie was back in bed and the plates were cleared, they stood by the window again. This time, her hand found his, and neither of them pulled away. I've never let anyone in like this, she said quietly. Not since him. I'm not him. I know, her voice was soft but steady. That's why it scares me more. He turned to her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You think I'm not scared too? Of what? Of wanting something I don't think I'm supposed to have. She stepped closer, chest rising and falling. You didn't ask for this life, she said, but you stepped into mine without flinching. I didn't flinch when it was water, he said. This is different. Her fingers curled into his shirt. So what now? He didn't answer with words. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was memorizing the taste of her, the feel of her, the way her breath caught when he pulled her closer. And when they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't know what this is yet, he admitted, but I know I don't want it to end. Delilah closed her eyes, then don't let it. Quinn stood in the middle of the ballroom, his tie tugging at his neck like a noose. He wasn't used to this kind of noise, the clinking of champagne flutes, the hum of designer heels across marble, the subtle sneers behind polite laughter. The gala was a galaxy away from anything he'd ever known, but Delilah's hand in his grounded him. She hadn't told him much when she invited him, just that it was important and that she wanted him there. Now, standing under chandeliers the size of his apartment, he realized what she meant. This wasn't just a party. It was her world polished, ruthless, and watching. Across the room, a man in a tailored tuxedo glanced their way, his eyes narrowing before turning to whisper something to a woman dripping in diamonds. Quinn didn't miss the way Delilah's grip on his hand tightened. "Who's that?" he asked. "Graham Easton," she said, her voice low. "One of our senior board members. He looks like he's wondering how got past security. He's wondering why I brought someone who wears steel-toe boots to a 7-figure fundraiser." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure I'm not embarrassing you?" Delilah turned to face him fully, the soft satin of her gown catching the light in waves. "If anyone here has a problem with you, they can leave. I'm not trying to start trouble." "No," she said. "You're just not hiding who you are, and that's exactly why I brought you." Before he could answer, a woman approached, all sharp angles and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Delilah, darling, you've been scarce lately." "Just busy, Lorna." The woman's gaze flicked to Quinn. "And who's this?" Quinn extended a hand. "Quinn Keller." Lorna took it with the hesitance of someone shaking a wet dog's paw. "And what do you do, Mr. Keller?" "I fix things." "Ah, a contractor." "Something like that." Delilah stepped in. "He saved my daughter." The smile faltered. "See." "I invited him tonight," Delilah continued, her voice calm but firm, "because I wanted to." Lorna's eyes narrowed slightly, then she turned with a polite nod. "Well, enjoy the evening." As she walked away, Quinn let out a breath. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I did," she replied, "because I meant it." They moved to the edge of the room, finding a quieter corner near the terrace. Quinn leaned on the railing, looking out at the skyline. "She called me darling like it was a threat." Delilah laughed, a short, surprised sound. "She's furious. I didn't tell anyone I was bringing a guest." "I'm guessing that's not how things usually go." "No, usually it's me walking in alone, smiling like it doesn't bother me." He glanced at her. "Does it?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Every time." "Then I'm glad I'm here." She looked at him, and this time there was no tension in her hands, just warmth. "There's something else," she said. "I didn't want to bring it up earlier, but you should know." He stood straighter. "What is it?" "One of my partners, Leonard Shaw, he's been pushing for a merger. I don't want. He's making things personal. And I think tonight was meant to remind me how replaceable I am." "You're the founder." "That doesn't mean I'm safe, not when they smell blood." Quinn leaned in. "What can I do?" "Be here, that's all I needed." He nodded, then looked past her, where Leonard Shaw himself had just entered the ballroom, flanked by 2 men with the kind of expressions that said they hadn't smiled in years. He was older, gray at the temples, with a voice that carried even when he tried to keep it low. "You want me to talk to him?" Quinn asked. Delilah gave him a look. "Please don't punch anyone at a black tie event." "No promises." She laughed again, real, this time, and something about that sound made the tension in his chest ease. Later, when the evening wound down, and the guests had thinned to only the most stubborn socialites, Delilah found Quinn near the grand piano, sipping from a glass of water and watching the chaos with quiet amusement. "You survived," she said. "Barely. I think I was just insulted in 3 languages." "Probably." He turned to her. "So what now?" She looked around the room, her eyes thoughtful. "Now we go home, the driver's waiting." They left through a side entrance, avoiding the cameras lined up at the front. The car was warm and quiet as they rode through the city. Delilah's hand found his again, her fingers slipping between his like they belonged there. "Oliver's with my sister tonight," he said after a moment. "She offered to keep him after Little League. Said I deserved a night where I wasn't scraping mud off cleats or microwaving macaroni." "You do." He glanced at her. "You ever think about what this is?" "I think about it constantly. And I keep thinking I'm going to find a reason to stop. But I haven't." He looked out the window. "I want this to be real. I don't want it to be some whirlwind that crashes when the novelty wears off." She leaned closer. "Do you think this feels like a novelty?" "No," he said softly. "It feels like a life didn't know I was allowed to want." She reached up and touched his jaw, turning his face toward hers. "Then want it." He kissed her again, slower this time, like he was finally letting himself believe she wasn't going to disappear. When they arrived, her doorman opened the car door, but neither of them moved right away. Instead, they sat in the quiet. "I'll come up," he said eventually, "but just to talk." Delilah smiled. "I'd like that." Inside, they didn't head to the living room. Instead, she led him to the study, a space lined with shelves, a fireplace flickering low. She poured 2 glasses of something dark and rich, and they sat in worn leather chairs facing each other. "I used to come in here when everything was falling apart," she said. "When Ollie was sick, or when I thought I was about to lose a deal. I'd sit here and pretend I had control. And tonight, I don't feel like pretending." He took a sip, "Then don't." She looked at him, and something softened in her eyes. "You've shifted everything." "I didn't mean to." "That's the part that scares me." "Then let me earn it." She reached for his hand again. "You already are." The knock at the garage office door came just after closing time, when Quinn was elbow deep in inventory sheets and wondering if he had enough left in the bank to cover Oliver's upcoming field trip fee. He looked up, fully expecting a customer who'd missed the posted hours. Instead, Delilah stood there, dressed not in heels or silk, but jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled back into a ponytail. "You're early," he said, wiping his hands on a towel. "I couldn't wait," she replied, stepping inside. "I have something to tell you." "Is it good news?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That depends on how you feel about taking risks." He gestured to the small folding chair across from his desk. "Try me." She sat, her fingers curled around the strap of her bag. "The board forced a vote this morning. They're pushing the merger through. They want me to step down as CEO." "What?" "They're calling it a restructuring. But it's punishment, Quinn, for not playing by their rules, for not choosing someone from their world." His jaw clenched. "That's not right." "I know." "What are you going to do?" She took a breath. "I already did it. I resigned." His chair scraped softly against the concrete as he stood. "You walked away from your company." "I built that company to protect my future, but now it's being used to control it." She looked up at him. "I don't want to live like that anymore." He crossed the room, standing in front of her. "Are you sure?" "I'm terrified," she admitted, "but I've never been more sure of anything." He reached down and took her hands. "What about Ollie? What happens now?" "I've already called a team of lawyers. I'm keeping the assets in a trust for her. The rest I'll figure it out. I'm not broke, Quinn. I'm just free." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just wanted you to know that I'm not walking into any more rooms where I have to hide what matters to me." He looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he saw something that hadn't been there before. Peace. "So what now?" he asked. I was hoping you'd come to dinner with me, but not at some tower with a wine wall, somewhere real, somewhere we can just breathe. He smiled. I know a place. They ended up at a roadside diner off Route 7. Vinyl booths, cracked menus, and a waitress named Darlene who called everyone Han. Oliver sat between them, swinging his legs under the table while Ollie taught him how to fold a paper napkin into a swan. Delilah leaned her head on Quinn's shoulder. This is perfect. No crystal stemware, though. I'll survive. The waitress brought out grilled cheese and tomato soup, and the kids launched into a debate about which dinosaur would win in a fight. When Ollie asked for a milkshake, Delilah didn't even hesitate. As they walked out into the cool evening air, Delilah paused beside Quinn's truck. I've been thinking about something, she said. He opened the passenger door for her. That sounds dangerous. She laughed. I want to leave the city, not permanently, just for a while, take Ollie somewhere quieter. She needs space, so do I. He leaned against the open door. Where? There's a house in Cape May. My grandparents left it to me, but I haven't been there since I was a teenager. It's falling apart, but it's safe. He studied her face. You want to disappear. I want to start over, and I want you there, with us. His heart kicked once hard. Delilah, that's not a small ask. I know, but I'm not asking out of impulse. I've had money, power, but none of it ever made me feel the way I do when I'm with you. I want more of that. He swallowed. What about Oliver, school, his friends? There's a school nearby, small but good, and we're not talking about forever, just a season, a reset. He looked back toward the diner, where the kids were chasing each other under the neon glow of the sign. Okay, he said finally, let's do it. Her eyes widened. Really? If I'm going to jump, he said, I'd rather do it with you. They moved 2 weeks later. The house was nothing like her penthouse. It had peeling shutters, creaky floors, and a porch swing that groaned when anyone sat on it. But it was surrounded by trees, and the ocean was only a 5-minute walk away. Quinn fixed the plumbing. Delilah painted the kitchen cabinets sky blue. The kids started a lemonade stand at the edge of the gravel driveway and made enough in the first week to buy a new set of baseball gloves. One evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the world gold, Quinn came out onto the porch and found Delilah curled up beneath a blanket, Ollie asleep in her lap. He sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him. Did you ever think we'd end up here? No, he said, but I'm glad we did. She turned to look at him. I have one more thing to tell you. He tensed. Should I brace myself? I bought the garage. He blinked. You what? I talked to your boss. He was thinking about retiring. I made him an offer. It's yours now if you want it. He stared at her stunned. Why? Because I believe in you, and because I wanted to give you something that couldn't be taken away. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then he stood, took her hand, and pulled her to her feet. Come with me. He led her down the steps, across the grass still damp with dew, and into the clearing behind the house. Fireflies blinked between the trees, and the air smelled like pine and salt. He turned to her, both hands holding hers. I don't have a ring yet. I didn't plan this, but I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Her breath caught. I want to build something with you, for us, for them, and I don't want to waste another minute. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yes. He pulled her close, holding her like she was the only thing keeping his feet on the ground. And when they kissed, it wasn't about beginnings or endings. It was everything in between. A love forged in the waves, tested in fire, and grounded in something real. They didn't return to the city that fall. They didn't need to. The first winter storm rolled in without warning. Quinn stood on the porch, sleeves rolled up as he secured the last of the shutters against the biting wind. Inside, Delilah was kneeling beside the fireplace, coaxing the flame higher while the children played with a puzzle on the rug. The Cape May house had become more than a retreat, it was a rhythm now. Predictable, steady, warm in a way no penthouse view or boardroom could ever offer. "You're going to freeze if you stay out there," Delilah called through the screen door. He stepped inside, brushing snow from his arms. Storms picking up faster than they said might lose power overnight. She rose, brushing her hands on her thighs, stocked candles and filled the bathtub just in case. "Remind me never to challenge your emergency preparedness again." She handed him a towel, and he caught a hint of cinnamon in her hair as she passed. "What about the garage?" "Closed early. I left the generator ready to kick in if the lines drop," he said. "It'll hold." Ollie looked up from the puzzle and held up a piece triumphantly. "I found the tail." Oliver gave her an exaggerated nod of approval. Okay, maybe we'll finish this before we turn 90. Delilah leaned into Quinn's side. "They're getting too good at teamwork. We might be raising future world leaders." He kissed her temple, or chaos coordinators if we're being honest. That night, the power did go out. They lit the living room with candles and wrapped themselves in blankets. The four of them curled on the oversized sofa, and Quinn read aloud from a book about a dragon who refused to breathe fire because he preferred baking pies. Ollie laughed so hard she had to clutch her stomach. Oliver groaned at the puns but didn't stop smiling. Later, once the kids had fallen asleep, curled together beside the fireplace, Delilah pulled Quinn into the kitchen. A single candle flickered between them, light dancing in her eyes. "I've been thinking about something," she said softly. He raised an eyebrow. "You're not buying another garage, are you?" She laughed. "No, I'm thinking about what comes next, not just for us but for them." "I'm listening." She reached for his hand. "There's a program starting in town, community development. They're transforming old properties into co-ops gardens, libraries, small retail. It's funded by a foundation I used to sit on." "You want to get involved." "I want to help, but I don't want to lead it. I want to teach, be on the ground, let someone else stand in front of the microphone." He rubbed a thumb across her knuckles. "You'd be amazing." "I don't need to be amazing anymore," she said. "I just want to be present." He nodded. "Then I'll make sure you have the time to do it." She looked up at him. "And what about you? What do you want?" "I want to grow the garage, train local kids who don't have a clear path, give them something real to hold on to." Delilah's eyes didn't waver. "Then we build it together." He pulled her close, his voice low. "I didn't know what a home felt like until you." She pressed her forehead to his. "You're mine, you always have been." The next morning, the storm passed. Snow blanketed the world in silence and softness. The kids bundled up for sledding while Quinn shoveled the walkway. Delilah made hot cocoa from cocoa powder and oat milk, and the house smelled like winter and cinnamon. That spring, they turned the back acre into a garden. Delilah took the lead, dragging Quinn and the kids to a local nursery and returning with more seedlings than soil. They planted carrots, kale, cherry tomatoes, and a lemon tree that probably wouldn't survive the region, but Ollie insisted on giving it a name Captain Zesty. "I'm telling you," Oliver said one morning as he watered the squash, "we're basically farmers now." "You're wearing sneakers and spraying the hose in the sky," Quinn replied, shielding himself from the arc of water. "But sure, farmer works." At night, when the kids were asleep and the crickets chirped in the stillness, Delilah would curl against Quinn on the porch swing. They didn't need to speak. The silence between them was easy now, filled with things they didn't have to say. One Saturday in late June, Delilah pulled a small box from her coat pocket and handed it to him. He opened it to find a hand-carved keychain shaped like a tiny house with 4 initials burned into the wood: D, Q, O, and O. "I figured," she said, watching his expression, "if we're going to keep building this thing, we might as well make it official." He looked at her, the woman who'd once stood on a beach in heels and now wore dirt-smeared jeans with a sunburn on her nose. "You want to marry me?" "I've wanted that since before," I admitted it to myself. He didn't wait. He kissed her so deeply that the keychain fell between them, and the porch swing rocked slightly beneath their weight. They married under the chestnut tree that summer. It wasn't a spectacle, just close friends, neighbors, and the kids handing out wildflowers in paper cones. Delilah wore a simple dress, and Quinn wore a suit that Oliver insisted on picking out. When she walked down the path to where he stood, barefoot in the grass, he forgot how to breathe. Their vows weren't grand. They were honest. Promises made not with flourish, but with faith. Faith in what they'd built, in what they'd survived, and in the future they would shape together. That night, as the stars blinked over the Cape May sky and laughter drifted from the bonfire, Delilah danced with her new husband, while Ollie fell asleep on Oliver's shoulder. Quinn held her close, whispering into her ear, "Thank you for saving me." Delilah pressed her lips to his jaw. "You saved me first." And in that quiet moment, barefoot in the grass with the world behind them and their future wide open, they both knew. This was forever.